Memento mori. This is a phrase often translated to, remember, you must die, a stark reminder that you are indeed mortal. This is a phrase I've heard from time to time, but never really understood what it really meant. Recently, I think I have a better grasp on what that phrase really means to me. I can contribute this revelation to a single piece of media that taught me what it really means to live, that being, as you can see, Persona 3. To think that a video game would be able to convey such a topic like mortality in such a thought-provoking way would probably shock most. However, Persona 3 probably takes one of the most unique approaches to what exactly it means to live, and successfully conveys its messages throughout its 70-plus hour long journey. What I want to do with this video is go through exactly how Persona 3 is able to do this, and explain how this game has quickly become one of my favorites of all time. I want to first go through the story of the game to show you what I really mean. Of course, I'm going to be spoiling most, if not all, of the plot, so please, if you haven't already, go play the game before I end up spoiling it for you. In Persona 3, you assume the role as the protagonist, known as Makoto Yuki. He's your stereotypical early 2000s emo teenager who is extremely introverted and doesn't like to socialize a lot. For whatever reason, both his design and personality highly resonate with me, whether it be because I grew up in the early 2000s with that style being popular or whatever the case may be. I just really fuck with it. The game starts with Makoto returning to the town he grew up in after an accident occurred 10 years prior. However, things have changed because there's now a 25th hour of the day, known as the Dark Hour, that only certain people can experience. During this time, regular people are stuck in coffins and don't experience it, while there are dangerous creatures known as shadows that kill anyone who isn't in a coffin. Makoto is recruited to a special club at his school known as Cease, and soon finds out that he can summon a persona like the other members. Cease wants to get to the bottom of the Dark Hour and the mysterious tower, Tartarus, that has appeared at the school. Makoto meets the current members of Cease, Mitsuru, Yukari, and Akihiko, and then later on meets Junpei and Fuka. They all start to get to know each other as they try to figure out what exactly is going on. The game has a fairly unique way of telling its story. Basically, you're given a year to go through the story and do as much of the game's activities as you can. You go through the game one day at a time, and are given a number of choices onto what you can do with the time given to you. The days themselves have fairly similar structures. Most of the days start with you going to school with various social events occurring, like answering specific questions or meeting up with your teammates. After school is done, is when the game really opens up. Now you could just embrace Makoto's emo personality and just go back to the dorms and do nothing. The game doesn't really punish you for doing that. Or you could do the most with the time you're offered and do a number of activities. You can meet up with one of the game's many so-called social links around town. The social links are like side stories that don't affect the main plot, but offer a great number of benefits. For one, the links are ways that flesh out not only the world, but the many characters that are in it. This was the first time in the series where social links were available, and there are many great ones on offer here. There are a couple of really fantastic links, like the old couple, the monk, and the dying boy that really tie in nicely with the message of the game. Each social link has 10 ranks to them that rank up when selecting dialogue options that appeal to whatever personality that particular character has. When you rank them up, they also give you bonuses to the fusion mechanic, which we'll touch on later. Maxing out the links offer a few special scenes as well as special fusions. There are also links with all of the female party members, which let you romance them, Yukari being the best girl. But for some reason, you have to romance every single girl social link that's dateable in the game when you hit rank 10, unlike in later games that don't let you romance them or give you the option to do that. There's also no links with the male party members for some reason. However, after watching the links they get in portable, I'm kinda okay with that. When I played, I was able to complete most of the links, and I have to say, the links in this game really hold up, with some of them even topping links in the later games. However, there are a couple duds which kind of fall flat, but I don't really think they're the worst in the series. Overall, the social links in this game are some of the best the series has to offer, in my opinion. serve in tandem to fulfill the game's overall message alongside the main plot. Back to the day system. You don't always have to spend your time doing social links in your free time. You also have the social stats, academics, charm, and courage. These stats allow you to progress in certain social links, as well as access certain areas in the game. You can level up these stats through partaking in certain activities across town, like going to karaoke to raise your courage, studying to raise academics, or going to a coffee house for charm. These activities offer a nice change of pace from time to time and fit well with the idea of doing the most with the time you're allotted for. However, I feel like these stats don't really do as much as they do in this game as they do in later games, so I'm not going to dwell on them much longer. When the day switches to night, you can of course be lazy and just go to sleep, or you can take the rest of Cease with you and go explore Tartarus. Now this is where the game really starts. The gameplay revolves around you and your team getting to the top of Tartarus and going through its many floors. Each floor in Tartarus is randomly generated and consists of the game's main enemies, the Shadows. You can attack one of the roaming Shadows to initiate the game's central combat. Like many other JRPGs, this game operates around a turn-based system for its combat. If you hit the original Shadow from behind, Makoto gets to go first. Each turn, you can do a variety of things. There's your basic attack, defend, and use item options, but you could also summon your persona, which has some unique skills. There's a number of elemental skills that you can use to target certain weaknesses that the enemy Shadows have. You could also buff, defend, and heal with your persona. However, Makoto has a few unique abilities that the other party members don't have. Since Makoto holds the Wild card, he has the ability to hold multiple personas, where anyone else can only have one. You can take these personas to the Velvet Room, where a strange man named Igor and the best attendant, Elizabeth, allow you to fuse personas into better ones. This allows the player to mix up strategy on the fly and creates a lot more opportunities in battle. Makoto also has the ability to command other party members in battle. You see, in this game, you can only control Makoto, not any of the other party members. This might come as a shock to some, particularly if you're coming from the later games in the series like I was. Instead, the party members you take with you are controlled by AI, and you can influence what moves they do with the commands command. This adds another layer of difficulty simply through the fact that you have to control AI, which is unpredictable. It also turns into a problem when it comes to the bosses of this game. If the AI doesn't make the right move, you risk dying, which could set you back however much time it's been since your last save. I understand what they were going for, trying to make you feel like the leader and doing callouts for your teammates, but this just completely ruins the flow of combat and adds extra hours of frustration from the dated AI. Another problem with the gameplay comes from Tartarus itself. Going back to what I said earlier, you have to climb almost 260 floors which are randomly generated. This gets extremely old very fast, and it especially gets infuriating when you have boss encounters that rely on the pure luck of your party members actually doing the moves you want to do. Though it sounds like I've been shitting on the gameplay, which I kinda am, I just don't think it's terrible, and when it works, there is fun to be had. I just feel like it definitely has aged poorly, and I completely understand why people get turned off from this game by the gameplay. However, I think the story itself carries the game, so let's get back to that. During their forays into the Dark Hour, Makoto and the rest of Cease realize that larger, more powerful shadows are appearing during a full moon, and they realize that they have to take them down. They eventually find out that the Dark Hour was caused by the Kirijo Group, which is Mitsuru's family's company. The Kirijo Group and Mitsuru's granddad were researching the shadows, and their research caused the major accident 10 years ago that ended up killing Makoto's parents and Yukari's dad. From that, the group is introduced to probably one of my favorite characters in the series, Aigis. Aigis isn't like any of the other characters we've been introduced to already, with the obvious fact being that she's a robot. Aigis was designed by the Kirijo Group as an anti-shadow weapon and was present during the accident 10 years ago, but we'll touch on that later. When you first meet Aigis, her personality is very coarse and robot-like, but over time, she starts to open up to Makoto as she goes through the trials and tribulations over the course of the story, but I'll get back to her in a bit. As the months go on, the group defeats more and more of the powerful shadows and ascend higher and higher into Tartarus. New members Ken, Shinjiro, and Koromaru, who's just a straight-up dog with a persona, all eventually join up with Cease. They also encounter a rival group of Persona users named Strega, led by a guy named Takaya, who many people, myself included, dub as Revolver Jesus. There are a few confrontations with them over the course of the story, but they don't really seem that threatening. However, there's a bit of conflict brewing with the new members of SEAS. You see, a few years back, Shinji was actually a previous member of SEAS, but left when he lost control of his persona, which ended up killing an innocent woman. That woman was Ken's mom, and Ken is seeking revenge on his mother's killer. Tensions slowly rise until one night in October, when things get really serious. Ken asks Shinji to meet him during the dark hour, where he confronts Shinji and says he's going to kill him. To Ken's surprise, Shinji says that he isn't going to fight back, and that he's finally ready to confront the sins of his past. But before anything could happen, Revolver Jesus shows up to confront the two. By then, the rest of SEAS is already on their way to find Ken and Shinji. However, Takaya is threatening to kill Ken and is ready to shoot. Shinji jumps in front of him right as Takaya decides to shoot.
Go to hell.
No!
Everyone else shows up, but they're too late. The wound is fatal. Just before Shinji dies, he tells Ken,
It's all right. Give yourself time. Let your anger be your strength. Come on, kid. You're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own. Okay?
But
Aki, take care of him.
I will.
This is how it should be.
this scene is probably one of my favorites from this game, and it's only topped by a couple others, and the next scene following this one. The school holds a memorial service to Shinji, and after, Akihiko starts to grieve over the loss of his best friend. In his speech to his friend, he spills out all the grief he's experiencing and how much he wishes he could change things. Once he gets everything out, he starts to come to terms with everything that's happened, and a new resolution to move on grows within him in the form of his persona evolving. This scene to me was probably one of the most powerful and emotional in that I think many of us can relate to the grief Akihiko is going through. What really makes the scene stick with me is how Akihiko is able to take that grief and turn it into a resolve that keeps him going in life, so that the memory of his friend isn't lost. The rest of the main cast each have their own chances to resolve the pain they go through. Yukari and Mitsuru later on both come to terms with the loss of both their fathers. Fuka is able to resolve the conflict with her friend, and Ken is even able to come to terms with Shinji and his mom's death and decides to take Shinji's advice. Now I do think these scenes are nice, but I only think one other one comes close to Akihiko's scene. That would be Junpei's. You see, since the summer, Junpei started to develop feelings for one of the members of Strega, Chidori. Their relationship develops over the next few months as Chidori starts to open up to him more and more. It comes to a peak in November when Chidori goes missing, but they find her in the dark hour. However, Cease is ambushed by the rest of Strega, and that's when Revolver Jesus decides to shoot Junpei. In order to save his life, Chidori uses all of her power through her persona to bring back Junpei, which ends up costing her her own life. The loss of Chidori causes Junpei to have a new resolution in his heart, which causes his persona to evolve. From this point on, Junpei starts to become more and more mature like the rest of the cast, and learns what really is important to him in life. Now I adore this scene, and caused my opinion of Junpei at the time to completely change, and now he's one of my favorite characters, just like Akihiko. However, I still think Akihiko's scene is more powerful to me, but I can still relate to Junpei's scene as well. I want to skip ahead to where things start to get even more serious. By this point, Cease has defeated all the boss shadows that appeared during the full moons. They think the Dark Hour should disappear, but it doesn't. They had been betrayed by Itkutsuki, before his death, informs them about the Fall, which is an event prophesized to purge the world of humanity's darkness. After that, things seem to calm down as everyone is introduced and befriends a new transfer student named Ryoji. Ryoji seems pretty nice, and there are a lot of funny scenes with him as the gang gets to know him. However, Aigis doesn't like him for whatever reason. The next few weeks, Makoto especially becomes more and more familiar to Ryoji as the group starts to think things are getting somewhat better. However, during the next full moon, things start to heat up as Aigis thinks she has figured out Ryoji's true identity. They confront each other on the bridge during the dark hour, where Ryoji explains that he is the appriser and that he is here to bring forward the being known as Nyx, aka Death Incarnate. She is supposed to come into the world and enact the Fall. It is revealed that during the accident 10 years ago, Aigis fought Ryoji when he was Death Incarnate. She was not able to defeat him, so with her last bit of strength, she sealed him in the closest being nearby, that being Makoto. However, Ryoji's current form is due to all the human experiences he had while being within Makoto. Every so often, a strange boy named Pharos would appear, only to Makoto during the dark hour. He would offer Makoto some advice as to how to defeat the shadows that appeared during the full moons. However, after they defeat the 12th one, he disappeared. It turns out that was Ryoji, or more accurately, Death, all along. He offers the group an ultimatum: kill him and forget everything that happened during the dark hour, and live the rest of the days in ignorance as to what's going to happen. Or face death head on. He gives the group till New Year's Eve to make their decision. The group mulls over the decision, not knowing what to do. Eventually, everyone decides that they're willing to face death head on, and they're not afraid to die. Once it gets to New Year's Eve, Ryoji comes back to hear everyone's decision. You, the player, can do either option, but the true option is not killing Ryoji. Ryoji takes Makoto back to his room to hear his decision, and when he hears that he won't kill him, he shows him his true form, that being Thanatos from the beginning of the game. I just want to quickly comment on Thanatos' design and just say it's fucking cool, and it's one of my favorites. Ryoji tells you that Nyx is coming at the end of January, and that Cease will have to get to the top of Tartarus to meet her there. Now the group is committed to facing death. They all promise each other to meet up after everything is over, even if they don't remember. The next month is completely filled with unfaltering dread. From the changing of the daily life music, to heavier piano influence, to more and more NPCs succumbing to apathy syndrome, the game really makes you feel the dread the characters are going through. There are even points where they start to doubt themselves, but they press on. And speaking of dread, let's talk about the music. The music in this game is so fucking good. Alright, that's it. Seriously, the music in this game is fantastic. From the opening track, Burn My Dread, to even the daily songs like When the Moon's Reaching Stars.
I've never felt like so miserable. I've never felt like thinking this will last forever.
The music in this game goes so hard. There's a reason why Mass Destruction is so well known. Just listen to it.
Ozone shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah. Dun-dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun-dun. Baby, baby. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
The instrumental songs go hard as well, especially the boss fight songs. When a game's music is something that I can listen to even outside of the game, I definitely think it succeeds. Even the spin-off songs are so fucking good. Before I get to the final fight, I wanted to circle back to Aigis. Over the course of the game, Aigis tries to grapple with all that happens. She starts off as a stereotypical robot character of the group, with her wanting to understand humans, but she quickly grows into her own. She goes through the death of Shinji with everyone else and realizes that she has developed feelings of her own. Her feelings swell up until it finally bursts the day before New Year's Eve. She comes out regretting what she did to Makoto 10 years ago and pleads with him to kill Ryoji. It gets so bad that she even starts to question her own existence. The group is able to convince her that life is worth living even though they don't know when it will end. She comes to terms with this and vows that she'll find her purpose in life. This gets expanded upon in their social link where she comes to the realization that her purpose is to be with Makoto and to protect everyone, even if it's not possible at all times. I honestly didn't really like Aigis at the beginning, but after seeing her arc play out over the course of the story, I honestly can relate to her in a lot of ways. I really came around to her by the end, and I really think that she might be my favorite character from this game, and probably even the whole series. There's more I want to say about her, but we'll speak about that in a little bit. After clearing all the floors and bosses of Tartarus, the group ascends the tower only to meet the last two members of Strega. Cease is able to defeat them, and they finally reach the top of the tower. They find that the avatar of Nyx has appeared, which is Ryoji finally fused with Nyx. It tries to convince them that death is inevitable and that they should not resist. Everyone refuses to falter, and the final battle commences, with the amazing track Battle for Everyone's Souls playing the whole time. This fight is pretty straightforward, but it is pretty drawn out, with it changing through the 12 arcana, refreshing its health every time. It's really just a test to see if you've mastered everything you've learned throughout the game, but of course the AI can be the wild card in this. Cease is able to finally beat it, but that was merely just the avatar of Nyx. The actual Nyx reveals herself as being the size of the moon, and with hope dwindling, Igor steps in to help. Igor informs Makoto that the many social links he's made throughout the story had given him the strength to face actual death head-on, through the form of the Universe Arcana. Finally, the Velvet Room's elevator reaches its destination. The power to stop Nyx, the answer to life, is now in the hands of Makoto. He stands ready, willing to meet his fate. He's brought to where Nyx truly resides. As Burn My Dread, Last Battle starts playing, Nyx attempts to use her power of death on him, but it doesn't work. Makoto is able to hold out through his sheer will to live and through the bonds he's made. Suddenly, Nyx's power has no effect, and with a simple movement of his arm, it's all over.
Ash old robot, spit it out, some game's over.
The rest of Cease finds themselves floating out in the vastness of space as Ryoji's voice calls to them. He informs them that Makoto has sealed Nyx away, and that he's found the true answer to life's greatest question. They return to find Makoto is back as the Dark Hour disappears. It skips ahead to March, and with the Dark Hour gone, they all forgot what happened. However, something seems off about Aigis. The game lets you go around and meet with all the social links that you've maxed out and get some really nice scenes, especially with the dying boy, which almost brought me to tears. On March 5th, Aigis informs Makoto that she remembers everything and remembers the promise they all made to each other. They both go together to the place they said they would meet, the school roof. Meanwhile, the rest of the group is slowly coming to their senses, remembering the promise. On the roof, Aigis starts to pour her heart out in one of the most emotional pieces of dialogue I've ever heard in a video game.
I finally began to understand what it means to live. Thinking for yourself, not running away. Accepting the inevitable. All things eventually come to an end. Every living thing will one day disappear. Only by accepting this can one discover what they truly want. What the meaning of their life will be. I understand now why I was so tormented by my lack of strength. Protecting others became more than just an order I had to obey. I wanted to do it for my own reasons. I realized this once I decided to try and prevent the fall. When I thought I might never see you again, something else became clear to me. What I wanted most. And so, I made up my mind. I decided that I would continue to protect you. I want to be your strength. I know I'm not the only one who can do this, but that's okay. My life will be worth living if it's for this reason.
She speaks of all of her experiences they had over the past year, which gives her a reason to live. Her entire character arc comes to a close through her willingness to live and her wanting to protect and be with Makoto. Makoto himself starts to feel a bit tired as they can hear everyone else is making their way to the roof. Aigis turns to him and says that he can rest now. He closes his eyes.
Don't worry. I will always be by your side, protecting you.
Now, I'm probably not going to be the first one to say this, but this ending legitimately brought me to tears. Having spent so much time with these characters, and finally seeing Makoto open up more and more to them, made that ending payoff extremely worth it. Knowing that Makoto went from someone who struggled socially to making these bonds with his friends, facing death head on, and finding the meaning to life. Knowing the bittersweet fact of how Makoto sacrificed his own life to seal away Nyx and still had the willpower to fulfill the promise he made to his friends, made the whole journey worth it. I can't sing enough praise to how much I love this ending. I never would have thought a game would touch me as personally as this one did. I genuinely love this game's message of living life to the fullest, not knowing when it's going to be over, and I think it strikes a chord with a lot of people. It may sound corny, but I honestly think this game helped me through a rough patch in my life, and I'm glad this game was able to teach me to appreciate life just a bit more than how I was at the time of me first playing. And with that, I honestly think this game is one of my favorites of all time. Thank you all for watching my little rant about how much I love Persona 3 and what exactly it means to me. I hope you were able to at least see where I'm coming from when I said that this game is actually one of the best games I've ever played. I know the combat and a few other things like the graphics may be a bit dated, but it doesn't take away too much from me for the overall quality of the game. So yeah, go play this game if you somehow made it this far and haven't played the game. I initially wanted this video to come out on the 5th of March, but obviously I missed that by a little bit. I've just been busy with life, and I wanted to take my time on this one because it sort of means a lot to me. But I do have a few projects coming up that hopefully won't take as long as this one, so go ahead and look forward to that. So I think that's just about everything I wanted to say. Thanks again for watching. Maybe subscribe if you like it, and have a good one.